Mars stationing retrograde. Yes, the retrograde begins with Mars. Mars has really been at this slowdown for a couple weeks. We've been in the shadow period for almost 2 months now, so it's not going to feel necessarily like a jolt, I don't think, with Mars stationing retrograde, but the slowdown will continue even more. It really feels like the theme of the weekend is like pumping the brakes, and that's the season we're in too. Things are slowing down. The days are getting shorter. The temperatures are getting colder. Like, animals are going to start to go into hibernation soon enough, or they're at least preparing for hibernation now. So Mars retrograde is right on time with that trend and that theme of the energy. And again, we talked about this at the very beginning of Scorpio season, but a refresher for you all of what is to come with Mars retrograde through the end of the year. So Mars has been in Gemini for months now. It's a very extended stay, an extended transit through Gemini because it's retrograde in Gemini for the entire retrograde. So Mars got to 25 degrees of Gemini, then it's going to go back all the way to, I want to say 8 degrees of Gemini, and then go forward again. Remember, Mars is the planet of action, aggression, impulse, war, conflict, these very masculine energies. And during Mars retrograde, it could be that we're reviewing all the places that we've already put our energy, all the actions that we've already taken. And this review, this slowdown helps us to really decide what we want and what our true desires are. By slowing down, they can become clearer. Now, I think it's really cool too that Mars is at this standstill as it switches directions right around All Hallows Eve, right around Dia de los Muertos, this time when the veil is thin. It's kind of this huge opportunity to pause and connect with higher guidance, because there's not this pressure to go and do and act. It's like our action is paused. And in this pause, we can find sacred connection. So I just love that. I mean, there are no coincidences, but I love the timing of Mars stationing retrograde. The coming months, as we slow down, offer us an opportunity to get really clear about what we want. What's the goal? What's our motivation? What's the direction we're heading? So Mars retrograde is really asking us to check in with our energy and the actions we're taking. And also, Mars and Gemini, as we talked about, as Mars moved into Gemini, feels a lot like juggling, like you're multitasking, doing a lot of different things at the same time. Gemini energy likes variety. So with Mars and Gemini, we have had our energy going a lot of different places in the spirit of variety, but it could feel like you've been juggling all these things. I know I've been feeling that. It could feel like you've been juggling all these things, taking action in all these different places. And Mars retrograde allows the balls to fall out of the air and for you to look at like, okay, how much have I been juggling? How much have I been carrying? And is this sustainable? I'm going to slow down for a second. And even like almost as if you juggled the balls more slowly, what would that feel like? Would you be able to keep as many of them in the air? I can't juggle personally, but I know that the more things you have juggling, the faster you have to move, right? So it could be that the slowdown shows you, oh, I can't actually keep all of these balls in the air at the same time. And, it also feels as if Mars retrograde is kind of aligning us with calling our energy back from anything that we're not getting anything out of. Like, how many places are you putting your energy into that aren't actually giving back to you? So Mars retrograde, it should be an interesting extended retrograde. And above all else, it's just asking us to slow the heck down. And once Mars resumes forward motion on January 12th, hopefully we will all have a clearer idea of our true desires and what we really want. And knowing that, clarifying that during this slowdown can help us take more aligned action when Mars is moving forward again. Also, Mars in Gemini has maybe made our mental state feel a little chaotic as well, because Gemini is very much about the mental state and conversations, or we've been really assertive in conversations that we're having, Mars retrograde can soften that a little bit and maybe allow the mental chatter to slow down a little bit too. So I'm curious to see what this brings. It feels like it's just another element of this slowdown we've been talking about. Yeah, my Mars in Taurus feels comfortable with this slowing down. Exactly. With your Mars in Taurus, it's slow and steady. It's what's sustainable, what's going to keep us going. And remember, we just came out of Mars in Taurus, right? So we know that energy. We understand that our actions need to be sustainable. We just had that transit a couple months ago, and Mars in Gemini felt like it really picked up the pace and it kind of pulled us in all these different directions. So now is the time to come back to ourselves, right? Feeling the slowdown and going to think about the energy put places more, not all really worth it. Yeah. And you have time to figure it out too in this slowdown. So it doesn't feel like everything's going to come to a halt necessarily. It's just kind of this review of what have I been doing? Mars is all about doing. What have I been doing with my energy? Yes, also love this potential for clarity as my progressed moon in Scorpio wraps up during Scorpio season 2. It's going to be beautiful. So full permission to just slow the heck down and review your own motivations, review your own desires over the next couple months. Yeah, hoping things fall away that don't need my attention anymore. Yes, and Gemini energy is all about stimulation, right? And so a lot of our motivation with Mars and Gemini could be to continue getting stimulation. But with Mars moving backward, it's like, do I really need this much stimulation? Do I really need this much going on all at the same time? So that's something to keep in mind as well. I think you will definitely feel the slowdown after the wedding is over. You've been planning and planning and planning with Mars and Gemini, juggling all these things, doing all these things, getting everything ready. And then I think it could feel like, for you at least, Diane, just this big oh, okay, we can slow down now. We don't have to have that constant juggling of the wedding planning anymore. Very, very aligned. And I love that we're using Diane's wedding as an example for all of the transits playing out this weekend. I feel like it really helps, at least for me, get a clear visual of what the energy is going to look like. Yeah, I feel like I'm being pulled into multiple directions. I just really want to focus on what's important to me. And that is exactly what Mars retrograde is going to help us do. Thank you so much for joining us and aligning with the energy of the universe today. If you enjoyed this morning's episode of Transits Today, you can join our live astrology discussion every weekday morning right here wherever you're watching. And head to thespiritualjournalist.com to read your daily astrology forecast and browse the Spiritual Shop. The most fun way to help keep these forecasts free and support more content like this is to buy yourself a little something on our website. But if you're feeling extra generous, you can also buy me a coffee to fuel future live streams. Just tap the link in the description or head to buymeacoffee.com and search The Spiritual Journalist. And speaking of, you can also tune in to The Spiritual Journalist, our weekly live interview where we ask our guests questions about everything from crystals and manifestation to mental health and the environment. Those conversations stream live right here wherever you're watching now every Tuesday. I'm so grateful you found us here, and I can't wait for our next conversation.